Are you ready?
Jamie Markley, David Van Camp, and Scott Robbins.
We just become best friends. Yep.
Making sense of it all.
Now I get it.
And having some fun.
Lighten up, Francis.
The Markley, Van Camp, and Robbins Show. I'm Jamie Markley. That's David Van Camp. There's Scott Robbins. Okay, let's start with Hunter Biden.
Yeah. Hunter Biden, news breaking this morning that he is pleading guilty to 2 misdemeanor tax charges. Didn't quite file the taxes on time, and is essentially getting probation for the gun charge. I forget, what do they call it, a pre-trial diversion or something like that. It's a fancy verbiage, basically saying, don't do it again, bud. And if you do it again, then we're going to prosecute you. So it looks like slap on the wrist for a whole lot of things.
No, that can happen to anybody. You know, that gun charge gets dropped to a misdemeanor. Yeah.
Yeah. And the gun charge, yeah, I mean, that they're not even prosecuting him on that. They have basically said, don't do it again, but otherwise, yeah, you're free to go.
Yeah, who hasn't dropped guns in the garbage cans before and just left them? I mean, you know, it happens all the time.
Who hasn't been caught on video bragging about your firearm,
right,
while you got a pile of crack next to you?
Right.
Well, to be fair, Scott, I think it was the girlfriend at the time that was scared that took the gun and then dropped it off in the garbage.
Yeah, across the street from a high school.
Well, yeah. Yeah, but they usually just throw their trash on the ground there. They don't actually go through into the garbage. So it was okay. No problem there. And I know, David, you mentioned this off air. It ticks you off because of a similar charge where someone's doing 2 years.
Identical charge. Yeah. We talked about it last week. The mom in Virginia of the 6-year-old kid who took his mom's gun and shot his teacher with it. Mm-hmm. So she's facing state charges, but at the federal level, they did charge her with the exact same crime that Hunter Biden committed, which is lying to the feds when purchasing your firearm about your drug use. Turns out she had been smoking weed around the time when she bought the gun, and she lied when she said no, she is not a user of marijuana. Hunter Biden also lied about his drug use. She is facing 18 to 24 months in prison under the terms of a plea agreement she made with the Department of Justice, the same Department of Justice that says not a big deal that he was getting high on crack when he had this gun.
Golly.
Well, you hear Joe talking about guns all the time. We got to do something here.
Yeah.
Okay, here's the example. Of course, we know it doesn't work that way.
No, because a lot of these technicality gun laws are about screwing over poor people, and especially poor black people.
Yeah. Oh, they'll never give you that narrative. Mm-hmm. They'll never go to that angle. But, yeah, you make a great point with it.
Yeah, the gun was a gift to the student council of the school. Therefore, tax deductible.
Yeah, I was watching this clip from CNN, the legal analyst there, Ellie Honig, talking about the gun charge, and I think he made a pretty astounding claim about the entire thing.
Oh, okay.
The firearms charge, it's important to understand what this is. There is a federal law that makes it illegal for an addict, a person who's addicted to drugs or alcohol, to possess a firearm. This is a strange and somewhat obscure, or rarely used, not never, but rarely used federal law. I used to do firearms cases all the time, but the vast majority of federal firearms cases are either a firearm used in another crime of violence or a firearm possessed by somebody who has a prior felony. This is sort of low down on the list of firearms offenses.
Well, one, why does the law exist then? But two, someone just pleaded guilty to it last week.
Right.
In a high-profile case.
And you're talking about, we got these background checks.
Yeah. Yeah. The
background checking for what? I think a lot of people would agree. Yeah, you don't want drug addicts with guns. All of a sudden, no, it's kind of a strange law here.
Right. So the party have forced the rich to pay their fair share, and common sense gun laws is once again showing the rules don't apply to them.
No. It just doesn't happen that way.
Yeah.
I've seen it too many times. Okay, moving on to Donald Trump. Interesting interview with Bret Baier, Fox News.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Donald Trump sat down for an interview with Bret Baier on Fox News, and, of course, the charges he's facing over the classified documents thing was a big topic. Thought this was interesting. Bret Baier said, hey, why didn't you just hand over the boxes when the National Archives asked for them to begin with?
Okay.
So I've got a lot of things in there. I will go through those boxes. I have to go through those boxes. I take out personal things. As far as the levels and all, everything was declassified because I had the right to declassify. You want to talk about a mess, take a look at Biden, where he's got 1,850 boxes. He has boxes stored in Chinatown in D.C. He has boxes stored at Penn Center, and he has boxes under his Corvette and around his Corvette sitting in a garage for years where it was very seriously classified. I have every right to have those boxes. This is purely a Presidential Records Act. This is not a criminal thing. In fact, the New York Times of all had a story just the other day that the only way NARA could ever get this stuff, this back, would be please, 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 could we have it?
Okay, so what do you think of that, Scott? I can see it.
I don't know, man.
Oh, just say it.
Okay, I'm tired of this crap. I really am. I'm so done with it.
Now, are you talking about done with Trump or done with just the whole
I'm done with the whole
trying to
kit
figure out
and caboodle. Just make it stop. That's all I ask. I mean, and that's the most honest response you're going to get all day. And not necessarily just me that thinks that way either, but it's like, come on, man.
Well, I think...
Can we just get on with it?
Well, I mean, this is something he's facing right now, so he has to answer to that. Yes, you start to glaze over after a while, because he's facing so many different things. It's coming at him at all angles. So he's defending himself, and yes, I totally get that. At the same time, you're watching what's happening to the country, and that's sort of top of mind. And we're like, oh, we're still dealing with all this legalese stuff. And I understand that it's a different set of rules when you're talking about Biden, other people. And then you hear other commentators, and I've heard conservatives say, if he just turns it over, then this doesn't happen. Like, well, then they'll come after him because of something else. Yeah. But it is exhausting after a while.
It is exhausting, and you start to zone out after a while. You just like, I've heard all of this 100 times.
Yes. I understand. What do you think when you hear it, David?
I think whoever is thinking about representing Trump in court just downed like 3 cases of Maalox. I don't think it's like doom and gloom, sky is falling. I've seen a few places, hotair.com had an article saying, oh my gosh, he just admitted to obstruction because he, was moving this stuff out so he could pick his personal belongings out. I don't know if I buy into that. What I will say is that the DOJ is obviously going to be coming at him with both barrels with this. And he's not doing himself any favors by going out and having this sort of candid conversation. I've heard one defense that says, well, he did that a lot during the Mueller investigation. And this was a way to say, hey, look, he called it as a witch hunt. And we know that was a witch hunt. And he was willing to talk about it. The difference here, though, is that the Mueller investigation was just that. It was just an investigation. Mm-hmm. Trump's being charged. The trial is set for August. It's a different ballgame because Mueller was not in a position, without charging him, to send Trump to prison for talking smack about him. The prosecutors in this case are in a position, and I think they're going to try to do it, and we'll see what happens moving forward, but every statement he makes it a little bit easier for them.
It's so frustrating because it is a 2-tiered justice system.
Oh, there's no doubt about that.
To watch it all unfold like this.
Also, I thought it was interesting that all of a sudden I got a court date in August.
Yeah, I was surprised by that.
People take years to get a court date on things.
Yes. Meanwhile, no legacy media yet on the Biden family corruption story.
That's incredible.
Phone calls and all, no coverage yet. They can't ignore it forever. Want to get an update on this situation with the Titanic explorers. Mm-hmm. And this is a strange story. Yeah. And, as we've mentioned before, it certainly captivated Robbins. I know you're paying a lot of attention to this, David.
Well, it's fascinating. Yeah, 5 people are stuck in this small submarine in the North Atlantic. They went down to check out the wreckage of the Titanic. We're talking like $250,000 a seat to go down and do this.
Wow.
They haven't surfaced. They missed their window, apparently, and no one can get in contact with them. No one knows what happened just yet. The U.S. and Canadian forces are looking for them now. There's massive search underway. But this is a small submersible. I mean, it is, and you talk about needle in a haystack. My goodness, this is a needle in a cornfield that you're looking for right now. Anyway, they've only got a few days of oxygen available. A woman named Janneke Mikkelsen knows one of the dudes in the sub. His name is Hamish Harding, and she did an interview on News Nation saying, well, yeah, this is pretty much worst-case scenario.
Wow.
My fear is that they didn't make their last ascent window. They should have surfaced a few hours ago. They didn't. That is scary. That is very scary. And we're starting to think about worst case scenarios. And just my biggest fear is knowing that they are trapped without the ability of receiving help. This is my biggest fear. There is no one who can reach them at the bottom. And this is terrifying.
Wow, man. And that's what you're thinking, David.
Yeah. It's gone down or something. If they're not already dead, they probably will die.
Man. Is that what you were thinking, Scott?
Well, I mean, that's certainly a possibility. Yeah, I pondered that one. Or one of these cases where things just disappear and no one ever knows why.
Well, I was just listening to the off-air conversation before the show, and it seemed like you had a hopeful tone.
Yeah.
Until David just said, matter of factly, dude, no.
I know. Yeah. And I was hopeful. I mean, I still am on some level because I know they had enough oxygen to survive, another 2 days or something?
Yeah, I think they had a total of 96 hours.
Yeah, and there was like 70-some left or whatever. Yeah, I don't know. I don't remember.
I mean, it's exactly within the next day or two, they're out of oxygen.
But, what happened? Gone. Why weren't they able to surface, number one? And number two, are they ever going to find this thing? Because like you mentioned, David, it's a needle in a cornfield, man. It's, Yeah.
All right, be keeping you up to date on that. Man, a whole lot to get to today. Wow, a church was vandalized? And it has something to do with Pride Month? What? What's that whole story about? Get to that. And does getting tickets now actually require a coordinated military operation? All right. The Markley, Van Camp, and Robbins Show. Jamie Markley, David Van Camp, Scott Robbins. Robbins, did you want to remind everybody what month it is?
I'm not sure.
It's Pride Month.
Is it?
Yes, it is. You say it all the time. Did you know it's Pride Month? You say it every day. Because you maybe have had enough of the ads and everything else.
Boy, I haven't seen anything about it. It's quiet.
Story that's making national news now. There's a Massachusetts church that was vandalized. See, what happened was they rent out part of the church for a preschool. The preschool hung pride flags on church property. This is Grace Community Church located near Salem, Massachusetts. So then the church was targeted, and there was spray paint all over the outer wall then that read, "Stay gay, stay hard, love is for everyone." It's got this rainbow drawn between the words. Don't ask. I don't know.
Hard, huh? Okay. What do you call them, grandmas?
Golly. Okay, so apparently the story goes like this. There is this dude, Mike Richmond, who is a gay man who owns Pleasant Street Preschool. Rents out a Sunday school classroom from the church. School posted pride flags outside the classroom. And then this guy recorded a video of two church members, that would be Richard and Ann Stedman, removing the flags that he posted outside the church.
Yeah.
So as Richmond and his boyfriend, Ryan Thompson, approached the couple, there's a verbal dispute. That's where, I read this story. It was Daily Wire saying the dispute started with Richmond saying, "Why are you guys taking down the pride flags?" And Mrs. Stedman said, "Because it's a church that does not celebrate. You can have your time, but we don't want to celebrate if we don't have to. We're also a church that believes in the Bible. We have the freedom to do both things." Richmond pushed back. "What's the message you're sending the children?"
Here we go.
She said, "The message is that we honor your business, but you should honor our beliefs." Richmond said, "So you'll take our money, but you won't celebrate who we are?" She said, "You can celebrate who you are, but we don't have to." And then the video ends. So Richmond then accused the church of homophobia on the school's official Instagram, saying the real reason I'm being booted has become clear. And then there's a big protest on Sunday. And they posted it's only the beginning of the battle against intolerance and injustice, saying that the town needed to face the uncomfortable truth about the underlying bigotry in the heart of this town.
Man, screw you, dude. What the hell's wrong with you?
Right.
You're like, oh, we need to have our pride flag out at the church. Blah, 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 blah. You're a tenant, okay? There are certain things that if the landlord says, no, you can't fly that here for one reason or another, you have to abide by that. Sorry that hurts your feelings, but hey, maybe rent a different classroom.
We've talked about this many times. It's not just that you need to accept. You need to celebrate.
Yeah.
No. Absolutely not. So apparently, this dude Richmond, the boyfriend, different people in town said, yeah, no one should have vandalized the church.
Mm-hmm.
That was not the cool thing to do.
Well, you're the one who sparked the fuse.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. The Pride Committee there in that town said for a church or any organization in our small town to act in a way, in a town where kindness rules the day, is surprising. For this church to choose to discriminate and behave so hatefully is shocking. For taking down the pride flags?
Right. They didn't refuse him to, they didn't refuse him a room because he was gay or anything like that. It was like, hey, you violated the terms of our agreement. You put up a flag that is not representative of our values as a Christian organization. Go somewhere else.
Are you familiar with the Bible? Do you know what it says?
Right.
Why is this so hard for you to understand?
Going back, it's like the religions of Abraham between Judaism, Christianity, and Islam have been pretty clear about where they stand on homosexuality for, thousands of years.
Yes. We also talked in the story about how there's been a big battle with Christian parents and Muslim parents against this sort of indoctrination in schools. And I don't think that's going to be going anywhere anytime soon.
Oh, for the people who speak tolerance that have no tolerance.
Yeah.
It's really remarkable.
It is.
Yeah.
I mentioned the story about getting tickets to a concert now requires a coordinated military operation. Okay, I think that's stretching it a bit. But apparently, it's so hard to get big concert tickets that they're saying you have to coordinate it on, a lot of different, or through a lot of different areas so that you're not all, streaming from the same place, basically.
Yeah.
Trying to refresh and get tickets and how hard it is. And, man, standing in line seems a lot easier now.
Yeah, it does. Yeah.
Okay, more on the judge setting the trial date for Trump. And a news update next. All right. The Markley, Van Camp, and Robbins Show. Jamie Markley, David Van Camp, Scott Robbins. Okay, David, the judge has set the trial date for the Trumpster.
Yeah, August 14th of this year.
Wow.
When I heard August, I thought, oh, my gosh, okay, so right just a couple months before the election they're going to start this? Oh,
That's
no,
what
this
I thought.
year.
Yeah.
Which is remarkably fast.
Boy, I'm surprised because I thought they were just going to trail this out like they usually do.
Yeah. Well, I do wonder if you've got the Hunter Biden plea agreement that's been reached, and they're trying to get this out of the way now with Trump. I do wonder if this is everybody's kind of coordinating here in one way or the other to make sure that, one, Joe Biden doesn't run. It's sort of like we'll go easy on your son if you drop out. And then let's try to get Trump out of the way as quickly as possible so that we can have time to set up whoever is going to run in their place.
Really interesting.
Now, I don't have a ton of confidence that the federal government would be able to actually orchestrate that organized in that organized of a fashion.
I don't know. They've organized in other ways.
But
yeah,
that it just seems like, okay, they're hitting the gas pedal on this. They expect the trial to last 2 weeks. And so before any votes are cast during the primary, they're going to have this thing out and done with. That's their plan, at least.
Okay, so top of mind when you're talking about, Trump legal issues. The Alvin Bragg stuff, I don't think anyone takes any of that all that serious.
No, I don't think so either.
When you're talking about Georgia, what's coming up?
Mm-hmm.
What do you think there?
Again, without having any sort of indictment handed down right now, this has to do with an attempt to steal the election, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
I don't think so. I think, again, federal prosecutors love easy cases. All prosecutors love easy cases.
Yeah.
And in the case of the classified documents, most of us can say, okay, it's probably not really that big of a deal. But if they have just a portion of the evidence that they claim to have, then Trump's probably going to be convicted.
Trump needs to fire some people right now.
What do you mean?
Like Tucker Carlson, for instance, so the Dominion thing goes away. It doesn't even work for me. Fire him anyway.
When you said fire, I was thinking he can't get lawyers.
No.
I mean, lawyers quit.
And you would think these guys, these attention-starved, spotlight-driven, legal guys that are out there that handle everything to get attention, you'd think that somebody would jump into the fray, but now it's like toxic. Nobody, no thanks.
Yeah, I mean, they're limited, I guess, to who can practice in the Southern District of Florida. But then I'm sitting here thinking, okay, let's say you got a 50-year-old lawyer who really wants to make a name for himself.
Yeah.
But then all the baggage that comes with representing Donald Trump, including, liberals. No, I'm not even talking about Trump. I mean, liberals will be threatening you. They will be sending people to your house. They will be targeting your kids if you have any. Is all of that really worth the career boost? And then and this is where President Trump's going to get mad at me. Then you have a client who will go out and talk about the case.
Well, yeah.
David! So did you hear one of the anecdotes? It was from the lawsuit with E. Jean Carroll, that nut in New York. During a conference between Trump's attorney and the judge, Trump's attorney said something to the effect of, like, the judge was saying, oh, you got to keep your client quiet during this whole thing. And apparently the attorney looked somewhat exasperated and said, you know what I'm dealing with.
Scott!
I mean, that's the thing. It's like that's one of Trump's greatest assets and greatest liability is the same thing. It's that he tells you what he thinks about it. When you got the federal government breathing down your neck, though, in a court of law, that's going to be a liability.
And here he says the prosecutors are thugs.
Yeah. This was during the interview with Brett Baer. He brought up what Alan Dershowitz has called the most dangerous portion of the indictment, which is where Trump evidently on tape talked about a plan to attack Iran and notably admits that he never declassified the document. That's how it's framed in the indictment, at least. And so I believe Dershowitz when he says this is the sort of final nail in the coffin. This is the biggest risk. Trump disputed that, though.
Okay.
I'm just saying what the indictment says.
Well,
the recording and the people in the room who testified.
These people are very dishonest people. They're thugs. They're thugs. If you look at what they've done to other people, what they've done and overturned in the U.S. Supreme Court, these are thugs.
The suggestion was that you wanted this as evidence that the military, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs, General Milley, had preemptively sent you plans for a possible attack on Iran and that you didn't order that to happen. That's the suggestion.
I never ordered it to happen, no.
But that's why you wanted the document.
I don't think I've ever seen a document from Milley. Milley, frankly, was incompetent. The last one I'd want to attack with as my leader would be Milley.
Fair assessment.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
It is. These people are thugs. I mean, dude, it is. It's comical and at the same time.
James!
No, I'm saying, but man, you got to understand, it has gotten him in trouble before. I think you said it best. I mean, sometimes your greatest asset can also be your greatest liability.
Yeah, and your lawyer's got to be going, what are you doing?
I know, dude. Yeah. But totally get it. But yeah, ask how many lawyers would want that gig.
Yeah.
That are even eligible.
Mm-hmm.
But dude, yeah, I know we got to move on to other things. All right. Just about this time every day, going around the table. May not be the biggest story out there, but it certainly caught your attention. David, today, what's your story?
I know y'all hit this yesterday, but I want to crack at this as well.
Please do.
Cracked me up here. Karine Jean-Pierre, White House press secretary, did an interview with the left-wing blog The Grio, and wants you to know the Biden administration is historic, okay?
It is.
Mm-hmm. Many things that made me incredibly proud to be at that podium during this historic moment. Again, this is a historic administration. I'm a historic figure, and I certainly walk in history every day, but this is also a historic making administration because of this president.
A historic making, yes. Uh-huh.
I know, yeah.
It is. She was
drinking out of Kamala's mug. Just said historic like 57 times in the course of 30 seconds.
She is historic, though, not only as the first black lesbian to ever be the White House press secretary, but she's also the first press secretary who's ever been kicked upside the head by a mule.
That's a child, you're saying?
Yes.
I'm a historic figure, and I...
Yes.
She also lived at the bottom of a well for 3 weeks. They called her Baby Karine.
Okay, we tried to figure this out yesterday. Have you ever known of a worse press secretary?
No,
there never has been one. No,
it's a new low. I mean, there are throughout history different press secretaries that maybe lied more than the other, maybe weren't very good, but they could form sentences.
Yeah,
she can't form sentences.
No, and if you ever point that out, you know what you are.
Racist! Oh, I thought
homophobic
and sexist.
Homophobic
and
sexist, yes.
Everything.
Everything.
I look at it as discriminating against people who get kicked in the back of the head by a mule. I'm an anti kicked in the back of the head muleite. I don't know.
Well, you were part of that board of directors of raising money for people who got kicked in the head by mules. The forgotten folks in our country.
That's right.
By the way, and I mean this sincerely, anyone else dropped on their head as a baby? Or am I the only one on this show?
I think you were the only one that I know of. I may have been dropped on my head. I don't know.
Yeah.
I got hit on the head by a basketball once. This is when I was really, really little. My dad was playing with my siblings, who were a few years older than me, on the driveway, and for some reason he had put me directly underneath the basket. Kind of thinking, well, the kids are never going to make a shot. They were too little.
Oh, my goodness.
And, then it came down right on my head. So that explains a lot, okay?
Wow. I'm the only one that took a bat to the head. That was when I was in my 20s.
Yeah.
That was a skull fracture.
I remember that one.
Story for another time. All right, what's your story today, Scott?
An executive board member of a Virginia teachers union defended remote learning during the COVID-19 pandemic. This was a recent interview in ProPublica, saying that the learning loss suffered as a result of the education method during the pandemic made everyone equal. So the smart got dumber, and they all equal now. Everybody's dumb.
Go.
Yeah.
Wow.
Communism in a nutshell.
In an interview, this Melvin Hostman, a member of the executive board of the Richmond Education Association, said that he found it very hard to support the push for additional instruction time to combat learning loss when school districts have more important needs, such as lack of toilet paper, school buses arriving late, and widespread absenteeism. After the COVID-19 pandemic, students suffered massive learning loss, as only 13% of 8th graders met grade-level expectations. But everyone's equal now. That's all that matters. Shut up. We need toilet paper, okay? Golly, man.
For my story today, and, where I went down this rabbit hole is the story of Dr. Peter Hotez, who has been on MSNBC. He's a big spokesman for vaccines. Very pro-vaccine. I mean, he said a lot of things in the last few years that I'm sure he wishes he had back. He had said some things about Robert Kennedy Jr. being on Joe Rogan's podcast. Mm-hmm. Okay. Saying Spotify's basically given up all this, misinformation that this guy puts out there. And so Joe Rogan had challenged Hotez to debate Kennedy Jr., offered him $100,000 to do it. And then Elon Musk said he won't do it because he knows he's wrong. Talking about Hotez. So I don't think Hotez is going to debate him. We'll have that story a little bit later as to why. But as I was looking at all of this, Hotez, I mean, I don't know how overweight he is. A little bit, at least. He is. I wouldn't say grossly obese or anything like that. Just somewhat overweight, like a lot of people in the United States. But Rogan's had him on the podcast before, okay? And I don't mean this toward anybody individually, but if you're talking amongst friends, sometimes the conversation will come up, you're meeting with someone, it could be a doctor, whoever, that's talking about your health, and you're sitting there thinking, well, how healthy are you?
Right.
Dude, Joe Rogan with this doctor, he's talking to this doctor, I think, in the way a lot of people would like to, but because he's Joe Rogan, he can, and it's his podcast. Listen to how this conversation goes.
Do you take care of your immune system in other ways? Do you take probiotics? Are you cautious about your diet?
I'm not as cautious about my diet as I should be. I'm a junk foodaholic, actually.
Well, that seems like a terrible thing for your health.
It is a terrible thing for my health, and something my wife is working on.
But that seems ridiculous for someone who works with health.
Yeah.
What's going on with you, man?
Sometimes, man, I just don't get it right.
How often?
What?
How often?
How often do I steal a bag of chips or something like that?
How often do you eat garbage?
I don't know. No, hopefully not every day, but
hopefully not every day.
Yeah, maybe a couple of times a week.
Oh.
Okay, so right here you're thinking, all right, you get the idea and you just move on, right? Not Rogan, dude. No. Nope.
That's what with Rachel, my daughter with autism. That's like our thing is to go to the it's called the burger joint or to Shake Shack to get a cheeseburger. We'll sneak some fries. So,
say my daughter has autism. This is what we do. It's, comfort food. Some people would say. And usually after something like that, the interview would be like, "Oh, okay, I'll lay off this." No.
So you
live in large, we call it.
Like that mouth pleasure so much, you're willing to sacrifice a little bit of health.
I am. Yeah. I have to concede that's the case.
Well, there's. I don't have to tell you, but there's a large body of data that connects poor diet to a host of diseases. Mm-hmm. That seems like a crazy decision for a guy in your line of work.
There you go. Sometimes the
wow.
Sometimes it's not all brain. It's something else.
But I mean, if you ate healthy food, the thing is, your body starts craving healthy food. You start feeling.
Yeah, no question, results. No question about it,
dude. That's like a minute 20 in.
Golly,
holy, that's just brutal.
It goes to the 4-minute mark.
That is brutal.
He
just keeps pummeling him.
He's saying, I don't understand it. You're a doctor. And seriously, and I'm thinking to myself, how many people in America are like, yes!
Yeah. Well, yeah.
It's like taking a golf lesson from a 24 handicap chop.
Or like you're taking your car in for an oil change and the mechanic rolls into work in a tow truck with his car being towed behind it. You're like, maybe I'm going to Jiffy Lube. Okay.
Marriage counseling from Larry King.
Just cracks me up. We'll get to the rest of that other story a little bit later on. Okay, Trump worked with Russians to steal the 2016 election. Who still believes that? You won't believe who believes that. Next. All right, the Markley, Van Camp, and Robbins Show. Jamie Markley, David Van Camp, Scott Robbins. Okay, who still thinks Trump worked with the Russians to steal the 2016 election?
This is ridiculous. Democrat Congressman Ted Lieu, not a very bright guy, was on MSNBC this morning talking about how Congress is trying to regulate artificial intelligence, especially in an election year when it's really going to be hard to tell who actually said what. As his interview wrapped up, again, an interview talking about how to avoid disinformation, he ended it like this.
In addition, I do support legislation that requires disclosure on ads and social media and so on. So next time, for example, if you see a pro-Trump ad, it might just say at the bottom, paid for by the Kremlin. And so that's a kind of disclosure that we would like to see.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, that would be good. Democratic Congressman Ted Lieu of California.
These losers.
It's just insufferable. Just insufferable.
And the thing is, they honestly believe they're being really clever.
Right.
Right.
Still there.
And I'm sure he ran this by his staff before he did. What if I say this? It'd be great. What a knee slapper that Ted Lieu is.
Unbelievable.
What a clever guy.
We had a couple of clips Joe Rogan was talking about being healthy with the doctor, Peter Hotez.
Yeah.
There's so much of that I hope we have room for before the end of the show because it will crack you up, man. He starts asking the doctor, do you take vitamins? Well, no. With the crap you eat, you're not taking vitamins? It's like Rogan's the doctor. Incredible. In the end, he says, you know what, we're going to get you healthy. That's Rogan to the doctor. This is the Markley, Van Camp, and Robbins Show.
Are you ready?
Jamie Markley, David Van Camp, and Scott Robbins.
We just become best friends. Yep.
Making sense of it all.
Now I get it.
And having some fun.
Lighten up, Francis.
This is the Markley, Van Camp, and Robbins Show.
The Markley, Van Camp, and Robbins Show. Jamie Markley, David Van Camp, Scott Robbins. Okay, so a Hunter Biden update today.
Yeah, Hunter Biden has pleaded guilty to 2 misdemeanor tax evasion charges and is basically getting a slap on the wrist for violating federal gun laws. So, yeah, the gun law thing should have been an open and shut case. I mean, we talked about it just last week.
Hold on, Scott's got a message!
Spam call. Never mind. Go ahead. Sorry.
Hunter Biden's calling. Mm-hmm. He wants to know, where he can get some illegal guns.
Well, I had to look at dumpsters around schools first.
Yeah. So, yeah, the gun charge, though, there was a woman in Virginia just last week who pleaded guilty to the exact same charge, lying on a background check form or through the questionnaire process about drug use. And she's facing 18 to 24 months in prison now when she's sentenced later this year. Hunter Biden, the feds looked at him and said, hey, look, just don't do it again, pal. All right?
And it's exactly what you'd expect. And a lot of people critical right now.
Yeah.
And you totally understand why. It does feel like there's 2 tiers of justice.
Yeah. Now, there is some recourse, right, that can still happen here?
With the gun charge?
No, with the charges in general.
Yeah.
I mean, I know they're trying to figure something out.
Yeah, they think probably a fine is in order, plus paying back what you owe.
But in terms of further investigations...
Well, I don't know. I've seen a lot of people saying that basically the laptop thing is done. No more charges will come out of this. I don't know if that's true because in the press release that was sent out by prosecutors, they said the investigation is still ongoing. So maybe, maybe not. I think it's all kind of hanging out there. And if I'm going to believe one conspiracy theory out there, it's that this is by design. They're telling Joe, you're not running in 2024. We just had this sweetheart deal with your son. We could have sent him to prison. We're not sending him to prison. But the potential for that still exists if you insist on continuing to run for president.
Well, one thing, this doesn't have any impact as far as the House looking into the bribery schemes.
Oh, no.
Has nothing to do with that. Which sometimes when you hear the laptop, I mean, a lot of that stuff is on there.
Yeah.
As far as 10% to the big guy, from Tony Bobolinsky.
Yes.
But as far as this charge, that's interesting. The theory you just brought up, David. I mean, it could be. A lot of people feel like, what is it, over 70% of Americans, that's not just conservatives, saying the dude's too old. He's out of gas. I mean, he was in California yesterday. Could you make out what he was trying to say? How does this make sense?
Maybe most important, I've committed that by 2020, we will have conserved 30% of all the lands and waters the United States has jurisdiction over and simultaneously reduce emissions to blunt climate impact.
What? By 2020? What year is this?
Again,
I thought the same thing.
It's my theory that Joe Biden isn't so much senile as he is an accidental time traveler, like the time traveler's wife. He has no idea what year it is because he just came from 2020. And then when he's talking about how, he was around in 1913, well, it was because he literally was just in 1913, and then he just reappeared in the year 2023. He's experiencing reality at a level that we don't understand. And that's why he's a little confused, right? He's not senile.
Any time traveler I've seen before, though, doesn't have this kind of trouble with speech as they go into different time warps. But
well, he just gets he's not sure what he's supposed to disclose and what he's not. You see, he doesn't want to run afoul of the rules of time travel. You know, you squish a roach and in like 656 BC, and suddenly we have flying cars. You know, you don't want to do that. So that's why he stumbles around his speech.
Okay.
That's my theory.
No one, the history books will note it.
Also, we don't know if, in fact, his next time travel will be in 2019. Therefore, setting up 2020, the agenda he screwed up then, he can make good on.
Okay.
No, how do you do that?
I don't know.
I don't know either.
Pods, I guess.
Pods, you say?
Yeah, well.
James Comer, House Intel, tweeted out Hunter Biden getting away with a slap on the wrist when growing evidence uncovered by the House Oversight Committee reveals the Bidens engaged in a pattern of corruption, influence peddling, and possible bribery. And he has a full statement on that. So more on that a little bit later. I noticed yesterday, I hadn't heard this story. YouTube took down a video that was Jordan Peterson.
Yep.
Been a fan of Peterson's for a while. He's with Daily Wire now. And an interview with Robert Kennedy Jr. And I'm like, why did they take down the interview? And The Hill, that little thing they do, they put it out on YouTube. I guess it's called The Hill TV.
Yeah.
Robbie Suave is part of that. And so I went and checked it out. I'm like, well, what was it on the podcast that Kennedy was saying? And I can play it for you if you want. It's interesting.
Is this the bit you're going to play right now? This is what got him banned.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Yeah, I do want to hear it then.
Okay, roll.
These huge levels of depression and despair.
He's talking about kids right now.
Yeah.
But you can hear where this goes from there, talking about, why are kids depressed? I'll tell you where it ends up, okay? Some people would say it ends with frogs turning gay. All right?
What?
Just listen to this. It's about a minute long from Robert Kennedy Jr., again, talking with Jordan Peterson.
These huge levels of depression and despair, loneliness in kids. And I don't think that there's a single cause to it. And I think blaming it on, depression about climate is probably oversimplistic. And in fact, I think a lot of the problems we see in kids, and particularly boys, it's probably underappreciated that how much of that is coming from chemical exposures.
Okay. Chemical exposures. That's where he starts. Okay. Now, a lot of people on the left have said, man, Robert Kennedy Jr., he's a kook. Okay. Anti-vaxxer. Puts out these crazy conspiracies. And a lot of people have checked out what he has said in the past. Says, the guy's not all that crazy. And what is it? 80% of Democratic voters want to see Joe Biden debate him because he is running for president. Yeah. Again, YouTube took this down. He goes on.
Including a lot of the sexual dysphoria that we're seeing. They're swimming through a soup of toxic chemicals today, and many of those are endocrine disruptors. There's atrazine throughout our water supply. Atrazine, by the way, if you in a lab put atrazine in a tank full of frogs, it will chemically castrate and forcibly feminize every frog in there, and 10% of the frogs, the male frogs, will turn into fully viable females able to produce viable eggs. If it's doing that to frogs, it could. There's a lot of other evidence that it's doing it to human beings as well.
Okay. God. You're laughing, Scott. Give me your thoughts.
Well. He was talking about frogs turning gay in water that's polluted or full of toxic chemicals of some kind.
Atrazine, yes.
Yes.
Yeah. Yes, and then studies back this up.
Yeah,
well, does it happen in any other species besides frogs?
No, this has been talked about for a long time, and it's not turning frogs gay. It's there are certain species of frogs that are prone to hermaphrodism and actually without any sort of intervention for chemicals, if the biological imperative is activated essentially to reproduce in an area where there aren't enough females, that does actually happen, where you do have a natural changing that occurs in some species of frogs. I mean, my dad has talked about this when he was in college in the 70s. They were talking about this, wastewater engineer, and they would talk about this kind of stuff where around college campuses, with the rise in the use of birth control pills and things like that gets flushed through the wastewater system, you do have wildlife that is affected by the chemicals that wind up getting into the water supply. Now, does that have the same effect on human beings? Well, nobody's really demonstrated that one way or the other. And as far as the trans nonsense that's going on, to me, it's not because somebody's skinny dipping in a polluted swimming hole, okay? It's because they're on TikTok too much.
Right.
And they're being
social
brainwashed.
contagion.
It's a social contagion, not a physical one.
Yes. So as I'm watching this unfold, and then Robbie Schwab from the Hill says what I'm thinking, because I'm like, wait a second. I can remember Van Camp talking about Alex Jones in the classic bit talking about turning the frogs gay.
Yeah.
Which I didn't know if I'd ever actually heard that bit before or just heard you imitate Alex Jones in the voice. I wasn't sure, but Schwab then mentioned it.
Tyrone Hayes is the person famous for that study who has talked about it a lot. It also got a lot of pushback from the EPA and the Scientific Advisory Panel.
Okay.
It is what famously led to that viral Alex Jones video where he yells, "I don't want them putting chemicals in the water that turn the frickin' frogs gay." The whole gay frogs discourse.
That whole thing.
Okay. So we're having this chat before the show today.
Yeah.
And you discovered gold, David.
I did. So somebody took the original Alex Jones rant and did a remix of it. And this is my favorite song now.
It's a new song.
It's a new song.
One you hadn't heard before.
Yeah.
Your new favorite. Roll it.
I don't like them putting chemicals in the water that turn the friggin' frogs gay. Do you understand that? Turn the friggin' frogs gay. Frogs, friggin' frogs. It's not funny. I'm going to say it real slow for you. Gay frogs. Gay friggin' frogs. Frogs. I'm going to say it real slow for you.
You got to keep your sense of humor.
Oh, man.
You got to.
Oh, man.
Try to figure it out.
Wow.
Make sense of it all and have some fun.
Top 5 gay frog songs.
You're looking forward to Friday already?
That's number 1 right there.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
Golly.
All right, news update next. The Markley, Van Camp, and Robbins Show. Jamie Markley, David Van Camp, Scott Robbins. Okay, we're all keeping an eye on different media outlets, what they're covering. Are you seeing legacy media at all covering what we know about the lab leak with COVID-19?
No, not really, which is pretty remarkable. The Wall Street Journal is now confirming what was reported a few days ago, that, patient 0 was at that Wuhan Institute of Virology. Huh.
I mean, we know it. They're not reporting it.
Right.
Dr. Marty McCary, Johns Hopkins. It's pretty critical.
Yeah.
Throughout a lot of it. Got demonized for it. Has a piece, 10 reasons we know that COVID-19 leaked from the Wuhan lab. 1, the suicide of the Wuhan lab collaborator, Dr. Yusen. The key Chinese scientist who collaborated with the Wuhan Institute of Virology, Dr. Zhu Yusen, filed for a patent for a COVID vaccine February 24, 2020, according to documents. Less than 3 months after filing, he died under mysterious circumstances. Chinese media said he died from falling off the roof of the Wuhan lab.
Well, it can happen.
One of those weird things in authoritarian countries like Russia and China. Being on buildings or in them is very dangerous because you just slip and fall. They got slippery ceilings, slippery floors, slippery roofs, all of it, man.
Yeah, and sometimes you just need to go on the ceiling of a building and walk around for no reason.
Of course.
Yeah.
Breath of fresh air.
Yeah.
Second reason, the lab workers were the first COVID patients. Number 3, the lab had a detailed plan. And you read through all of this. It's wild. It's stuff you may have heard about but has since been confirmed, but media outlets don't report on it. And then it just goes on down the list. China destroyed all records from the lab, of course. Number 5, top virologist had told Fauci that it came from a lab. And then all of a sudden they changed their story. Legacy media didn't report a whole lot on that. You had to look for that story. But it's interesting. They mentioned, actually, Dr. Robert Gary of Tulane specifically told Fauci, I just can't figure out how this gets accomplished in nature. Of course, in the lab, it would be easy to generate the perfect 12-base insert that you wanted. Well, yeah, and then you change your story. Anyway, Fauci was the orchestrator of the natural origin theory. I don't think a lot of people know that.
I did not know that. Wow.
Yes.
I did not know that.
And it's detailed. And then, yes, China arrested the first doctors who treated COVID. Yeah. Remember this story of Dr. Li Wenliang, the doctor who cared for the first infected lab workers and then sounded the alarm? Oh, this is human to human. 3 days later, police showed up, detained him for 8 hours. He was forced to sign a confession that he was, quote, making false statements. Yeah. Then McCary's number 8 reason, lab leak caused the 1977 flu Chinese epidemic. Then you go, did I miss one? Where's 8? Yeah, that was 8. 9, the lab is 5 miles from the world epicenter. 10, Wuhan lab conditions were abysmal. We knew they had been cited for a bunch of stuff before it ever happened. Think about how this changed the world, how many people died.
Oh, yeah.
And I know if you polled people in America, would you want to know this information? Well, yes, of course. Legacy media is not going to tell them. Just not.
Lie upon lie upon lie upon lie. Layers and layers and layers.
Yes. And again, man, think about this. And we talked about this yesterday, David. So Anthony Blinken, Secretary of State, meets with Xi Jinping.
Yeah.
About all these different things and tensions. You go through the entire NBC report. Over 2 minutes. You know what's not brought up at all?
Huh.
Hey, you infected the world, huh?
Yeah.
Let bygones be bygones.
Nothing about that.
No. After they made him wait 30 minutes.
Well, they made him wait for days.
Yeah. He's sitting in the lobby looking at old-time magazines.
Am I going to get to see him or not?
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, he'll see you now.
Yeah.
Doesn't want to talk about anything too much, though.
Right.
Yeah, we look very strong on the world stage.
Terrible.
Yeah, it's embarrassing.
Yeah, it is.
This is the Markley, Van Camp, and Robbins show. Okay, biggest story today, David.
Biggest story today, Hunter Biden pleading guilty to 2 tax evasion or tax-related misdemeanors, and then they're giving him a mulligan on the gun charge. Anyway, yeah.
We need to get serious about guns in this country.
Right now, if you have a stabilizing brace for your AR pistol, you're a felon unless you register it with the ATF and pay a tax. But Hunter Biden illegally acquired a firearm, which was then disposed in a dumpster across the street from a high school. Yeah, just don't do it again, bud. All right? That's the federal government for you.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, we got to get to some more of the conversation between Brett Baer and Donald Trump. Got a little testy. That and much more coming up right here. The Markley, Van Camp, and Robbins Show. I'm Jamie Markley, the Gen Xer, the Millennial David Van Camp, the sexy boomer Scott Robbins. News update, David Van Camp.
Well, I think it's there are a couple of things that just caught my eye. One is that Fox News will be Fox News' Brett Baer and Martha McCallum will be moderating the first Republican presidential primary debate, August 23rd in Milwaukee.
Okay.
Which, according to the tentative schedule, at least right now, is just about the time the trial in Florida for Donald Trump is scheduled to be wrapping up.
Wow.
That's very interesting timing.
It is.
Mm-hmm.
The day after Brett Baer talked with Donald Trump.
Yeah.
And it got a little testy.
Yeah, it did.
Well, that was interesting, man. I know I brought this up before, and sometimes you feel like you're banging the drum too much. But just the suburban female voter. Trump's got to have her. How's he going to get her? I don't see it happening. That's the biggest issue I think he faces, is winning people back that voted for him before. And Bret Baier brought that up. And have you heard this clip? Just want to know if you've heard it yet.
No.
David?
Uh-uh.
Okay. I just want to get your honest reaction where this goes.
What do you say to that female independent suburban voter who feels that way, to win her back?
First of all, I won in 2020 by a lot, okay? Let's get that straight. I won in 2020.
You know that this,
and if you look at all of the tapes, if you look at everything that you want to look at, you take a look at Truth to Vote, where they have people stuffing the ballot boxes on tapes, or let's go to recent. Well, wait a minute. Let's go to recent. FBI Twitter. Let's go to recent. The 51 agents, all corrupt stuff, Brett.
Understand about the Hunter Biden,
no, but
all
that's cheating
fair
on the
thing.
election.
All right, time out.
But that's cheating.
Yes, David. You look a little confused.
Yeah, I understand. Let's accept the premise that there were, at a minimum, shenanigans going on with the 2020 election. I think we've documented them a lot.
Yep.
But the point is that if it's going to be a close election, which right now it will be, regardless of whether it's Trump or DeSantis or anybody else, probably going to be very close.
Mm-hmm.
Which means that you've got to figure out a way to overcome other shenanigans that may happen. That's the point of the question of what do you do to win. You have to turn out certain groups enough to overcome any sort of, ballot harvesting scheme, anything else that may happen. How do you win them back? How do you win back women voters, suburban women voters in Pennsylvania? How do you do it in Wisconsin? Yeah. Because unlike in states like Florida and Texas and Georgia, sorry, but the election laws have not changed appreciably.
No.
Heading into 2024. So you're going to have to overcome that. Any Republican is going to have to overcome the Democrat machine that has been built up over years in certain states.
And I understand there are some people that think you won't ever see a fair election, and it's going to be rigged. I get it. I get the cynicism. But this is the world we live in. You got to try to win the election.
Mm-hmm. Also, I think there's a defeatist sort of attitude about that, in that why bother to vote?
Yes. I don't want to get there.
I don't either, man, because that's dangerous, too.
So we're 30 seconds into this clip. It goes a minute 40. So we got a minute left.
Okay.
Roll it.
But that's cheating on the election.
You lost the 2020 election.
Brett, you take a look at all of the stuffed ballots. You take a look at all of the things, including things like the 51 intelligence agents.
There were recounts in all of the swing states. There was not significant widespread
We're trying
fraud.
to get recounts, real recounts, not just numbers of votes
widespread
cast.
corruption. There was not a sense of that. There were lawsuits, more than 50 of them, by your lawyers, some in front of judges that you appointed.
Look at Wisconsin.
That came out with no evidence.
Wisconsin has practically admitted it was rigged. Other states are doing.
Time out there. So as I'm watching this, I got a few different thoughts. One is, there are enough people that have lost faith in Fox News that will take that as you're just like CNN. You're going to debate him on everything he says there. Well, this is more of your regular interview than a town hall, what Trump was on CNN. So part of me understands the pushback there. I think if I'm interviewing Trump, I really am trying to get to, dude, I get it. We know that. We know how you feel. You're probably right. But how are you going to get that voter back? That's the part that gets frustrating listening to it.
Is relitigating the past the best avenue to take to gain those voters back? I don't think it is.
I don't either. No.
So what's the future look like?
Well, there's only, less than 30 seconds left.
Other states are doing the same right now, and it's continuing.
There have been reviews of every potential case of voter fraud in 6 battleground states, and they found fewer than 475 cases.
You know why? Because they didn't look at the right things.
Okay, are you going to be
counting? They were counting ballots, not the authenticity of the ballot. The ballots were fake ballots. Was a very rigged election.
Are you going to go, this is how you're going to tell that independent suburban woman voter to vote for you?
We're off to winning an election, and I think we're winning very well. I got a poll just recently. I have it here.
I know. And I watched the numbers.
Okay. Now, that's just one snippet of the interview. And I know that Trump is not going to listen to any advisor. He's going to do it his way. If you could advise him, are we all in agreement? Dude, you could take 10 or 15 seconds and say, listen, man, sooner or later, all that information is going to come out on that last election, how badly rigged it was. Now, as far as 2024, and then move on.
Well, compare and contrast your record with what we currently have.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, do that.
He's got a lot of things to celebrate. Yeah,
Absolutely he does.
You move forward. We are closer to the 2024 election than we are to the 2020 election, which has already happened. It's over. Okay?
Yes.
You can say I won by a lot, whatever. The only question is, okay, Mr. President, who's in the Oval Office right now? It's Joe Biden. Okay, so you got to overcome whatever happened in 2020.
Yes.
How are you going to do that? What's the selling point? Let's keep moving the ball down the field.
Totally agree. Okay. And more on that a little bit later. Oh, goodness gracious. I get to this story really quick. Oh, man. There's a bunch of audio I want to get to as well. I will say this. As far as schools go, not a big surprise Wall Street Journal story about how charter schools are doing great. New evidence of student success. This was a Stanford study that shows huge learning gains over union schools. I hope a lot of parents see this and start fighting back against the teachers' unions, looking out for their kids.
You know what's always interesting about the charter school thing is that every time somebody brings up either a private school or a charter school, you're going to have some lefty come out and say, well, what about this school that did this bad thing or whatever? Because certainly there are failures within that system, and I would just say, okay, well, there are school districts where only 13% of the 8th graders can read.
Correct.
So you want to look at a systemic problem, or do you want to nitpick and cherry pick isolated examples to try to prove a point that you're actually losing on?
Yes.
Well, they're achieving equality is what they're doing.
Right, exactly.
Yes. Okay. I guess sort of an update on the story about a debate between Dr. Peter Hotez and Robert Kennedy Jr. on Joe Rogan's podcast. That's not going to happen. So if you're unfamiliar with this story, Hotez is a big COVID vaccine proponent. Has been. And, I mean, we've played some of the clips that we've had, over the last few years from him. This is always a beauty to bring out again. This is Hotez.
Anti-science aggression is now probably one of the leading killers of young adults in the United States. I'll say that again.
That makes you laugh, David.
Well, what does that even mean?
I know.
Actually, the number one killer, if you're to isolate one single thing of young adults, it's fentanyl.
True. Yes. Well, and people are putting out a lot on this guy that's on MSNBC a lot. NBC's had him on a lot. He's always wearing the lab coat.
Yeah.
Trying to look doctorly.
Right.
And I think there were like 3 clips between July 2021 and January 22 of this guy.
By now, anyone who's unvaccinated and has been lucky enough to escape COVID, your luck is about to run out. Our worst pandemic threats arose out of unvaccinated populations. We have about 80 million vaccine-eligible Americans who are not vaccinated at all. And that's the reason why we have this horrible Delta epidemic.
Okay. You're shaking your head, Scott, yeah.
Well, it's so many things that don't age well, and I can clearly remember talking about this and some of the freaking texts or notes I got back from the listeners that were blood on your hands. You guys are killing people. You're responsible for the deaths of X number of people. All that nonsense that, again, you had to bear the brunt of it because if you were gonna go against the grain at all, they did a magnificent job of marketing this thing.
So Hotez is still banging that drum.
Yeah, of course he is.
Okay, so Robert Kennedy Jr. was on with Joe Rogan, and basically said, no one will debate you. I don't know if you heard that piece of audio that Kennedy Jr. said. That's where this story sort of starts.
All these controversial opinions that you have you had anyone debate you publicly about any of these?
Nobody will debate me. For 18 years, nobody will debate me. In fact...
And he goes on. Don't have time to play all of it. But I've said these different things about different vaccines, and I know a lot of people think he's a kook, but he's saying no one will debate. So Rogan says, I'll give Peter Hotez, the doctor, $100,000 charity. Come on and debate. Okay, it gets some more steam. All of a sudden, there's investors. There's other celebrities. Said, yeah, I want to see the debate. They're raising over $1 million to see this debate. Elon Musk comes out and tweets, he won't do it because he knows he's wrong, talking about Hotez. So MSNBC has the interview with Mehdi Hassan. What a propagandist that guy is.
At MSNBC, we don't abide conspiracy theorists, and that's why we hire people like Mehdi Hassan, who is one of the biggest left-wing conspiracy theorist nut jobs on television.
Yeah. Here's Hotez on his show.
Sorry, this time, Eddie, it's caused
talking about
something
Kennedy
really
Jr.
terrible, and that is during our COVID pandemic, I have a new book coming out that basically says 200,000 Americans needlessly perished because they believed the anti-vaccine disinformation and refused to take a COVID vaccine during our Delta wave and BA1 Omicron wave in 2021-22 after vaccines were widely available. So the point is anti-vaccine disinformation, it's always done a lot of damage and harm, but now it's a lethal force in the United States. And that's why we have to have that discussion. And I offered to come and go on Joe Rogan again. I've been on a couple of times and have that discussion with him, but not to turn it into the Jerry Springer show with having RFK Jr. on.
What RFK Jr. says, listen, here's the thing about Hotez, he never gives you any studies. Even talking about autism, he just won't give you any studies. He can't back anything up. He tries with this interview.
Debates are, but in science, we don't typically do debates. What we do is we write scientific papers, we present our findings in front of a critical audience of our peers to solicit their input and suggestions. But it's
okay. I call BS there.
No. Well, I think there is a certain class of academics and researchers who do believe that now, but no, science has always been about a debate. Always.
Absolutely.
It's always been about people sometimes getting heated, arguing over what is true, what is not true. Well, I have this, I have that. I mean, look, the only reason now that you have some academics and some in the academia field who feel like, well, we don't need to debate anymore is because, well, there are a lot of journals that make a lot of money and can pass along a lot of money towards people who publish in their publications.
We also know what happened during COVID. People, will you ever look at the Lancet the same again?
No.
A lot of people won't.
Absolutely not.
So that just sounds like total BS there. So it does not look like it's going to happen, which honestly is too bad because it would have been hilarious. And I wish we had time for more clips that I could play from when Rogan was asking Hotez, this is a while back, about his own health. Just seriously. Like, I think he asked him if he took vitamins.
Do you take vitamins?
Yeah. I don't take vitamins.
Really?
Yeah. I don't
wow.
think they do. I don't think they're needed. Because most in the American.
Hold up. You don't think they're needed while you're eating junk food?
Well, hopefully I'm not only eating junk food.
Okay,
right?
but you know there's a large body of clinical research on the efficacy of vitamins, especially vitamins D, vitamins.
Oh yeah, man, they go on and on. That sounds like a debate. He's pushing back on the doctor. And Rogan's right 100% of the time. If we have time, I'll play more of that. It's really good. Parts of it hilarious. Especially when Rogan says, we're going to get you healthy, doctor. Okay. Another news update. Straight ahead. Markley, Van Camp and Robbins Show. Jamie Markley, David Van Camp, Scott Robbins. News update, David Van Camp.
The U.S. Coast Guard says it is still searching for that submersible that was heading towards the wreckage of the Titanic that went missing.
Man.
So they're still looking for it. They got 10,000 square miles off of New England. They're saying they have no signs of a deep-sea craft that went missing. They've got about 40 hours of oxygen left if everything is okay. Like, if they're still alive in the submersible, then they have no idea if it's on the surface, at the bottom of the ocean, somewhere in between. There's a lot of water out there. I mean, it's 400 some odd miles from the staging area to the Titanic off the coast of Newfoundland. So they have no idea. where this thing went, where it is, and it's surprising to me how limited the technology is.
When I read the story, I couldn't believe it. There's more technology in your phone.
Yeah, they got like an old remote control to help work it. It's
almost
made
like an Xbox remote.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not literally, but something like that.
That's what I thought too.
Yes.
Wow.
I mean, they built it using recycled pipes.
Yeah. Strange, man.
Wow.
You're right though, Scott. It's like a movie.
It is, and it's like those where things just disappear off the radar.
Yeah.
You know, like planes disappear, ships disappear. I mean, this kind of thing is so weird.
By the way, anybody want to hear another couple clips of Joe Rogan hammering that doctor, Peter Hotez, about his health?
Do. I enjoy it very much. It's very entertaining, yes.
Well, again, man, this guy is big pro-vaccine, everything else, and we've played some clips of Rogan saying, it's crazy to me, you don't take care of yourself with what you eat.
He's a bit gooey, yeah.
You don't exercise, that sort of thing, saying, it'd be a better argument, honestly, if you did. It's funny, man.
You'd have a much better argument, don't you think?
You're making my wife stay here.
If you're taking care of yourself 100% instead of
But you still need your vaccines.
I'm sure you do, but vaccines aren't going to prevent cancer.
No, that's true.
Right.
That's
and
true.
There's a lot of diseases.
Or diabetes or cardiovascular disease. Or
and a lot of these diseases are connected directly to diet.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. You ask him about the exercise.
Try to go on the treadmill for 30 minutes.
You try.
Every morning. I do it. Actually,
you try? What do you mean? You do it. That's what Rogan said. And then he starts to talk about travel. It's really hard.
But, the thing that knocks the crap out of you is the travel.
Yes.
I find that very frustrating because you don't exercise right, and then you don't eat well, and you don't control the diet as well. So that's.
Well, I have a solution to that, and eat well and exercise. Those are solutions to that. Just do it.
You just do it. In the end, that's what Rogan says to the doctor.
We got to get you healthy, buddy. Can't be pushing only chemicals in injectable forms to facilitate health.
Wow.
That's the best.
Are you ready?
Jamie Markley, David Van Camp, and Scott.
Yeah, Hunter Biden is pleading guilty to 2 tax-related charges brought by the federal government, and then also there's basically a probation that's been set up for the gun-related charge, which is where he lied about his drug use while filling out the paperwork to purchase a gun. That gun, which, by the way, was featured prominently in videos that he shot himself. Like, one of them is naked. He's got the piece, like, down at his side, finger on the trigger.
I've tried to just say scrub those from my memory. Well, there's all those photos on that laptop.
Oh, yeah.
The one where it's like he's almost got this woman like a dog collar.
Mm-hmm.
It's insane, man.
Yeah. I like this from the Washington Post, though, and I'm wondering if you've ever heard anyone try to make this argument. Biden's defenders have argued that Hunter Biden is a recovering addict accused of relatively minor offenses, the type of case that would not typically be prosecuted by federal authorities. Again, with the gun charge, I'm sorry to be a broken record on this, but there is a lady in Virginia who last week struck a plea deal, pleaded guilty to the exact same charge, and is going to be sentenced to upwards of 2 years in prison later this year. Anyway.
Well, and you have a party that's always talking about getting serious about guns.
Yeah.
You're trying to get a gun illegally.
Yeah.
It seems like that should be a big deal to you.
Yeah.
But not in this case.
But then it goes on to say in the Washington Post that Biden's defenders suggest the investigation would have been dropped long ago if he wasn't the president's son. Does anybody believe
come
that?
on, man!
If he wasn't the president's son, I mean,
come on.
This thing actually started 5 years ago, and it would have been over in less than a year if it were anybody else.
Yes.
Wow. Okay. Nothing should surprise any of us right now.
Gosh,
but still,
dang.
like the stones of some people, what they say. Okay. Really, from a legal perspective, if you're trying to be open-minded, is there any way other than to see this as a, quote, sweetheart deal?
Yeah, you've got a lot of people out there saying, no, well, this is very run-of-the-mill ordinary, and, oh, this is actually punishing set of developments. No, it's not. Come on.
Well, again, dig if you will. Don Jr. smoking crack with a gun, and he throws it away next to a school.
Yeah. Oh.
And what would the reaction be? And don't lie about it. You know damn good and well what it would be. It'd be wall-to-wall coverage. People would be shrieking from the mountaintop if he was handed down the same sentence.
Well, there is one little thing you may have omitted there. That the person that actually threw it away was your deceased brother's wife, now your girlfriend.
All right.
There's that added twist in the whole thing.
Yeah, if it needed more stink on it, yeah, there you go.
Yeah, I think that would be a huge story if that was not.
Good think.
Yeah, there's no doubt about that. Speaking of Trump, did the interview with Brett Baer. Do you think this helped Trump yesterday?
No, I don't think it really. I think with Trump, so much is just kind of baked in terms of his support and detractors. Mm-hmm. I don't know if there are a whole lot of people who are just kind of open-minded about Trump. Maybe there are, but I just kind of think most people see what they want to see anytime there is an interview. But I did think with the questioning, some of the questioning from Brett Baer was, to me, I thought really well done. Especially.
By the way, real quick, have you talked to different people, and maybe this is just, part of my circle, I guess, people that have definitely supported Trump, and some that I would have said will be with Trump to the end. And there are a few that still are. Others, it would get a little cold, and then there might be an indictment, and then it's sort of back to all in.
Yeah.
And then he does something where you see it as a misstep. Like, no, Don, don't do that. And it does seem like over time, some people are getting a little more exhausted. I thought someone that would never criticize Trump, just whatever it would be, would just say, hey, well, you got to understand how much pressure they've been under or how much they've been attacked, everything else. And he said, it's sometimes I'm like, are you losing it? Like, why are you saying those things? Stop it. I'm like, that's just interesting to me to see how this all plays out. Because, well, I haven't heard this clip yet. The other ones I had heard. Where it was like, Don, stop. You could just say, 2020, I got hosed. Okay? And there's going to be more that will come out in the future. You'll see how bad it really was. But as far as 24, this is what we're doing, and here's our story.
Yeah.
That's what I think most people want to hear, but he won't let that go.
Yeah. Well, I think, to me, one of the most interesting portions of the interview was when Brett Baer asked him about something that I know a lot of people, myself included, have been worried about with Trump, because a lot of people that he brought in, including guys like General Milley at the Joint Chiefs of Staff chair position, I mean, you've got a whole lot of people that were brought in, John Bolton, et cetera, who were not looking out for Trump or Trump's voters' interests. And
Agreed.
You knew it at the time. I remember when he hired John Bolton, I'm going, what the hell are you doing, man? Why are you bringing that guy into the fold?
The stash.
Yeah, well, yeah. But Brett Baer...
Stash equity, bro. It's got to be there.
Yeah. Stash equity.
Yes.
Underrepresented in the White House.
That's right.
John Oates charity.
Yes.
Yeah. But Brett went through just a brutal list of people he hired that then Trump now hates.
All right. Roll it.
Your Vice President, Mike Pence, is running against you.
Yeah.
Your Ambassador to the United Nations, Nikki Haley, she's running against you. Your former Secretary of State, Mike Pompeo, said he's not supporting you. You mentioned National Security Advisor John Bolton. He's not supporting you either. You mentioned Attorney General Bill Barr, says you shouldn't be president again, calls you a consummate narcissist and troubled man. You recently called Barr a gutless pig. Your second Defense Secretary is not supporting you, called you irresponsible. This week, you and your White House called your White House Chief of Staff, John Kelly, weak and ineffective and born with a very small brain. You called your acting White House Chief of Staff, Mick Mulvaney, a born loser. You called your first Secretary of State...
Okay, I can't help this.
Wow.
I'm going to go Old Man River reference here. Dude, I feel like we're in Wormer's office in Animal House, and he's going through the list of things Delta's done or said.
Yeah, small brain. I missed that completely.
And now we're getting to Mr. Blutarski. That's what I'm waiting for. Anyway, go ahead. Roll it, Brett.
You called your acting White House Chief of Staff, Mick Mulvaney, a born loser. You called your first Secretary of State, Rex Tillerson, dumb as a rock. And your first Defense Secretary, James Mattis, the world's most overrated general. You called your White House Press Secretary, Kayleigh Canadian, milquetoast. And multiple times you've referred to your Transportation Secretary, Elaine Chao, as Mitch McConnell's China-loving wife. So, why did you hire all of them in the first place?
Because I hired 10 to 1 that were fantastic. We had a great economy. We had phenomenal people in charge of the economy. We had phenomenal people in the military. I'm not a fan of Milley, and I'm not a fan of certain of the television people. But I knocked out ISIS. I defeated ISIS. They said, Mattis, it would take 3 years, and I don't think we can do it. I did it in a period of like 4 weeks.
There's a lot of people who praise you for your policies. I just said that.
That's true. Well, I mean, you just went through a list. But don't forget, for every one you say, I had 10 that love us.
I mean, I don't know. That could be.
Yeah.
But there is a long list of people. And if I say off the top of your head, who is Trump still in alignment with that worked under him?
I think Kayleigh McEnany has taken the high road after the whole milquetoast thing.
But, I mean, he went after her. I'm saying that's still like a two-way street where it's a really good relationship.
Sean Spicer, maybe?
He got booted.
Mm-hmm.
I remember Spicer saying as press secretary he would be done and he would go into a room with Trump and he would basically critique his performance and tell him how he had to do better. Which Trump understands TV. I understand that, but I can't imagine having that gig. No wonder he was a nervous wreck. It's tough to work for Trump. There's no doubt about it. I think anybody would say that. I think Trump would say that. I mean, he's pretty demanding. Wow. That's really interesting. Okay. Moving on to the Associated Press story. Yeah. You got to be joking.
Oh.
What they're whining about?
Yeah, I saw this and I just rolled my eyes so hard I got a headache. They're mad because Republicans are calling the left Marxists.
Then stop acting like Marxists.
Yeah, they actually, I mean, many of them actually openly say that, but you're not allowed to call them a communist or whatever. They write, the Associated Press, the rhetoric is both inaccurate and potentially dangerous because it attempts to demonize an entire party with a description that has long been associated with America's enemies.
Okay, I haven't seen the piece, but tell me, do they actually explain how it's not accurate?
No.
Because they can't.
Yeah. Experts who study political messaging say associating Democrats with Marxism only furthers the country's polarization and is simply wrong.
Yeah.
Okay. Did I hallucinate years and years and years of people in media and government calling me a Nazi?
No.
Oh, yeah. Remember how Trump was
haven't
Hitler?
hallucinated since your music career took a bad turn in Austin, Texas in, as I remember, 2011, somewhere in there.
I mean, dude, the president himself has called Trump voters fascists.
Yes.
But don't call him a Marxist. That'll hurt our feelings.
Yeah, they want to stop free speech and grab your guns, but don't call them Marxists.
Yeah. Experts say there's a long history of U.S. politicians calling opponents Marxist or communist without evidence. Where's the counter evidence to this? I'm sorry. And by the way, cultural Marxism, which has been used a lot. My only quibble with it is I think it's kind of redundant. Marxism is as much cultural as it is economic and social. Anyway, though the term has become popular among mainstream Republicans, it has a darker past. Experts say the concept of cultural Marxism posing a threat was historically spread by anti-Semitic and white supremacist groups. So don't call out Marxist ideology because that's damaging to a whole group of people, and if you do it, you're a white supremacist. Off yours. Okay, stop it, you communist.
Yeah, exactly. You Marxist. Yeah. I thought you people were supposed to be real journalists. What a joke you are. That's hilarious.
The go-to position.
Of course.
White supremacy.
Okay. Man, there's a great piece from Michael Schellenberger. The New World War on Free Speech. This is pretty cool, and it's going to be a tour. I'm not even joking. We will get to that in the news update straight ahead. All right. The Markley, Van Camp, and Robbins Show. Jamie Markley, David Van Camp, Scott Robbins. All right, if I say, there's a war on free speech, do you just kind of roll your eyes and say, yeah, I've heard that for years? Or do you actually say, yeah, there absolutely is?
Well, there absolutely is. Yeah. Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
All right, how long ago would you have rolled your eyes at that, do you suppose?
Where I would have went, oh, that's just conspiracy stuff?
Yeah, or just, sort of talking points from somebody.
Probably before middle of Trump's presidency.
David?
I think my opinion started to turn on this after that Mizzou professor accosted a journalist covering a Black Lives Matter protest. Remember that lady with the red hair?
Yes. That was a classic.
Back up, and was like was kicking people out just for filming a public protest.
Right. Yeah. Well, I thought this was interesting. This is going to be in London, live in London. Michael Schellenberger, Russell Brand, Matt Taibbi. Censor Industrial Complex exposed.
Wow.
Doing a whole talk on it. I'm like, wow. I mean, wouldn't you say those three guys, say 7 years ago, would have been considered pretty much lefties?
Yeah.
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah, I suppose. Well, Russell Brand, I was like, he just kind of says things, right?
Yeah.
I never knew he had a huge political affiliation one way or another.
I wouldn't have called him conservative.
No, but I wouldn't have called him liberal either, so.
Okay.
That's just me.
Fair enough. Well, Schellenberger had this whole piece that he writes about. Well, it's the new world war on free speech, and it's not just the United States. He lays it out. It's worth a read just from part of it. Said the UN and the EU now, as far as their intention, is to censor disfavored speech at a global level, specifically by insisting that Twitter and Facebook obey their dictates or face massive fines and nationwide restrictions. And he writes, so far one of the greatest obstacles to these censorships and the ambitions is Elon Musk. It's true. But he's also under enormous pressure from advertisers, many of whom stand with these censorship advocates and heads of state. That's what we're seeing. I think that's what we're all up against in a way.
Yeah.
Because it's not just, evil dictators. It's massive amounts of cash.
Right.
And people that could care less as long as they get paid. So I feel good, though, that there are more people sort of getting involved in seeing this, and people that you would have thought were more on the left as far as journalists didn't forget exactly what their job is supposed to be and is speaking truth. That's a good thing.
Yeah.
I don't know if you're interested in this, David, but I did see it, and, try to have a little fun along the way during the show. A big Star Wars guy you are.
Mm-hmm.
Did you see the Hollywood?
Like a Star Wars guy.
I'm saying that like
big
Yoda.
Star Wars guy you are.
I'm trying to channel Yoda.
Good. I like that.
The Hollywood Reporter has the most memorable Star Wars quotes ranked. Do you care? Do you care?
Sure.
Okay, what would you guess is the most quoted
Probably
Star Wars quote
I think
of
it's
all
the
time?
misquote, but it's the Luke, I am your father.
That's actually number 5.
Wow.
Yes.
My favorite is Harrison Ford going into the cryo chamber thing, and Leia says, I love you, and he says, I know.
That was 4. Robbins got number 1.
Yeah, may the force be with you.
Yes.
Yeah.
Did Robbins just win the Star Wars game? It wasn't an official game. I'll give it to you, though. I have a bad feeling about this was 2. Hello There from A New Hope is 3. So there's your top 5. This is the Markley, Van Camp, and Robbins Show. Okay, biggest story of the day.
I mean, obviously, in the politics of it, in the politics world, it's Hunter Biden pleading guilty to 2 different tax crimes, misdemeanors, brought in by the federal government. And he's essentially skating on a gun charge as well that nobody else would skate on if they actually were being accused of it. We got that going on. Also, I mean, at the risk of being like CNN searching for that lost airplane, I'm kind of fascinated by the disappearance of this submersible that was going to check out the Titanic that's gone, and it's gone missing. Nobody knows where it is, and they've got like 40 hours worth of air left.
Wow. Man. Update on that and the Scott Robbins trifecta straight ahead right here. The Markley, Van Camp, and Robbins Show. Jamie Markley, David Van Camp, Scott Robbins. News update, David Van Camp.
Well, the Coast Guard has given an update on the missing submersible that was supposed to be going to look at the wreckage of the Titanic, and something happened. It's gone. They don't know where it went. They don't know if it sunk. They say there's about 40 hours worth of air left, breathable air left in this thing. I mean, you're talking like a 20-foot-long tube. And I'm measuring this out, kind of eyeballing it here. That's about the size of the studio I'm sitting in right now. And they got 5 people on board.
That's doable.
And it was already going to be like an 8-day round trip.
Yeah.
So already close quarters, and I mean, if something went wrong, they have no idea where these people. They're searching a huge section of ocean right now to find this tiny little thing. To me, my gut reaction is they're gone. If they're not dead, they're never going to be found. If they're not dead already, I mean, they're never going to be found.
Well, I mean, in a situation like this, you have different personalities, and they certainly come out. Doomsday Dave certainly brings his cloud around and shares his thoughts, and I appreciate it because sometimes that's the way it's going to turn out.
Right.
You're very hopeful, Scott.
Yeah, I am actually.
You were before David said what was on his mind before the show today.
Yeah.
Like you compared it to a movie.
Well, I do. I mean, like where something just disappears and is never found again, and the mystery that surrounds it. I mean, it's happened in real life before.
It has.
Well,
I guess I was thinking what you meant by a movie was sort of like it's a race against the clock.
Well, it is a race against the clock, but what I'm saying is ultimately you may not find it. That may be the conclusion. God, I don't know. I mean,
what movie has that ending?
Well, they had that show on Netflix where the flight disappeared. Then these people came back and they'd been gone like 10 years and had no idea.
Are you talking about? That's a reality series.
Yeah, I know it's not real,
happened.
but I'm just saying this feels like that to me.
Okay.
Only in reality.
The Returned or whatever that is.
Yeah,
Oh, I thought you were talking about a documentary.
No, not a documentary. But there have been flights that have gone missing.
Yes.
I mean, that's happened.
The Malaysian flight.
Yeah, gone.
Yeah.
And you watched that documentary.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
I've watched. I'm somehow attracted to these things because I want to know what happened. The black hole talk and all this. Who knows, man?
Okay, let's not get too nuts here.
Well, no, but you get down into the depths of the ocean like that, my gosh, man.
I understand. Well, and it's odd because the lack of technology, or at least seemingly the lack of technology that you would imagine would be with something like this.
Right? I thought they would be able to communicate with the top of the shore, wherever these guys are, to guide them along.
David, I want to get to this clip that you had. I haven't heard it yet. And it's a friend of someone that's on it?
Yeah, one of the guys on that is, I mean, they're all multimillionaires who are on this. The trip costs like $250,000. Okay. Well, a woman who knows Hamish Harding, one of the guys on the boat, this woman is named Jannica Mikkelsen, and she says, yeah, this is pretty much a worst-case scenario, but, everyone knows what they're getting into when they go adventuring.
Oh.
Every single expedition is dangerous, and that's something that Hamish taught me. He's the reason why I started my expedition career as well. Every expedition has a possibility of death, absolutely, and Hamish knows the risk of every single expedition he starts.
Okay. How many times has this thing gone down again? To go view the Titanic? Several times.
Yeah.
You may know there's a risk, but I'm guessing when you get on there, you're like, yeah, there's a risk, but not really. It'll be all right.
It's like getting on a ride at a traveling carnival. Yeah, there's a risk that the carny didn't bolt something down right, but what are the chances that it'll happen to you?
Well, I was thinking, planning on skydiving with my daughter this summer. I mean, there's a risk involved, but you also know how many jumps are fine. I mean, incredible percentage.
Yeah.
Don't look at me like that, Robbins.
No, I'm just saying, again,
Yeah.
How many times have you seen the chute not open or the thing just go straight up and spin like crazy? And
why do you laugh when you say
no,
that?
I guess the last time that happened, I remember a guy landed in a tree and survived.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, there was that one guy who parachuted out of a plane and then landed on somebody's house.
On their house?
Yeah.
It's crazy. Yeah. One other story before your trifecta. I saw this at Daily Wire. And this is about teachers in the Midwest are giving each other tips on transitioning kids quietly and subversively. You're like, what are we talking about? So this is several dozen Midwestern teachers, various states, Iowa, Michigan, Illinois, Ohio. They met in an online chat room hosted by the Midwest and Plains Equity Assistance Center, MAP, an organization that's received millions of dollars in federal funding. So the Daily Mail actually gained access to this workshop. Lasts like 4 hours. And it was centered on reviewing various new educational statutes to, quote, remedy the marginalizing effects and disrupt problematic policies. What are we talking about? Well, as the story goes on, the DEI coordinator for Royal Oak Schools in Michigan described her efforts to hide elements of social transition. Meaning, okay, you've got a kid that's going to change sexes. This is how you change a student's name and keep it from their parents. Saying we're working on our record-keeping system so that certain screens can't be seen by the parents. If there's a nickname in there, we're trying to hide. Dude, so they're looking at all these different places that have these laws. The parents would know what's going on at the school, and the teachers get into a chat room. This is how we can do this without the parents finding out.
Yeah. Gosh dang.
Dude.
God.
Would you have guessed that was going on?
No. Well, I mean, again, this sort of settles or answers the question, why do you call us groomers? Well, I don't know. If you're developing a network where you're grooming children and telling other adults how to groom children, well, I guess you're a groomer.
Yeah, it mentions the counselor in Ames Community Schools in Iowa, Jennifer Hagland, condemning Iowa Governor Kim Reynolds for signing a law in March barring males from competing on female sports teams, and then bragged about her personal activism for LGBTQ causes, saying, I know that I have my own right code of ethics, and that doesn't always go along with the law. And another teacher said the stakes are very high for trans youth. I think that requires working subversively and quietly, sometimes to make sure the trans kids have what they need. Dude, 65% of Americans just said there's only two genders.
Yeah.
That's up 6% from where it was last year.
Yeah.
You're losing this argument the more that people find out about it.
Well, and part of it's because of creepy crap like this.
Absolutely. Yeah. That's got to be stopped. All right, you ready for your big three, Robbins?
Yeah, let's go. Let's do it.
Let's do
Are you ready?
1, 2, buckle my shoe on.
It's the three most important news stories of the day.
I hit the trifecta.
Well, at least according to Scott Robbins. It's the trifecta on the Markley, Van Camp, and Robbins Show.
Right around this time every day, Scott Robbins trifecta. His top three stories of the day, helped by his hero.
Hi, it's me, Casey.
Hey, Casey. Staying cool, man?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm ready.
All right.
3.
Colin Kaepernick says he's back in the news, apparently. This is a guy who made millions of dollars by not playing football.
Yes.
Because,
best career movie ever made.
Yeah, activism paid better, and he
it did.
doesn't run the risk of CTE and all that other stuff. He has thoughts on white supremacy and capitalism, though.
Yeah, he, by the way, in terms of earnings, he earned $40 million playing football and $30 million from Nike. And who knows how many other millions of dollars from other agencies and organizations that pay him to do this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But Colin Kaepernick is now involved in co-writing a book. And the book, by the way, bases itself a lot on critical race theory, of course. But he also said black liberation simply is not possible under capitalism.
Okay.
I mean, it was for you, Colin, but, you know, well,
Right.
let's not get confused here. He said white supremacy persists in part because of its relationship with capitalism and ableism and so on and on and on it goes. I just wanted to point out the hypocrisy in a lot of this stuff because knuckleheads like him aren't giving their money back. I can guarantee that.
Oh, buddy, man. Okay.
Now, on with the countdown.
It's hard for me to not just yawn.
Oh, I know,
when
I know.
Okay. Like, who cares?
Capitalism is
It's
bad,
over.
except when I am involved in it, then it's good.
Of course, yes. Scott Robbins trifecta, top 3 of the day up to number
2.
Number 2, you want to talk about a Harvard-Harris poll.
Yeah, reported 66% of voters, including a majority of all parties now, say they would not want to live in a state that is increasing taxes, restricts legal gun ownership, more strictly allows abortion up to 9 months, allows minors to get gender surgery without parental permission, and encourages undocumented immigrants and other felons to vote. And I guess the takeaway from all of this is that it appears conservatives are, in fact, finally chipping away and winning on some American issues like rejecting abortion, butchering kids, and open borders. This is a positive story. Both parties now have starting to shift.
Well, how many people are going to be moving? Yeah. The next question that comes into your mind.
I mean, isn't that weird? It's so simple, too. Why are people relocating?
For a number of reasons.
Yeah, and they're all here, right here.
Yeah, pretty much.
Gosh.
Yeah.
We're getting closer and closer to number 1.
Yes, the Scott Robbins trifecta up to number
1.
Number 1, a hilarious development in the climate change cult.
You know, it's weird. Last summer, large wildfire came to be known as the Oak Fire. You guys might remember that one. Scorching its way across Mariposa County in California and part of Yosemite National Park. It was first reported on July 22nd, 2022. Burned 19,000 acres of land, cost more than $90 million, on and on it goes. And, of course, the experts were all out. They knew exactly what was causing this wildfire in California. And you know what it was, don't you? Climate change.
Yeah, that's what I heard.
We're at PBS NewsHour. We're seeing the devastating consequences that play out in real time about our role of climate change. Over at CNN, their climate correspondent, Bill Weir, explained how mega drought is driven by climate change that is affecting California and other western states. They're so dry and flammable. That's what's causing these fires. Senator Alex Padilla.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah.
We get it.
Worsening
Like
drought
it's
and
never
severe
happened on
weather
Earth before.
will only continue to put lives and property at risk from wildfire if we don't take climate action now. Well, the evidence is in, ladies and gentlemen. It seems that authorities have arrested a Democratic donor for allegedly starting the fire.
What?
Yes. Destroyed 100 homes and injured several firefighters. And by the numbers, by the way, this guy donated about $2,000 to the Democratic candidates committees in 2020.
Why'd they do it?
Why do you set it on fire?
Yeah.
Well, perhaps to start the dialogue on climate change, Jamie.
Oh, my goodness. And no, do not request Billy Joel because that's not happening.
He didn't start the fire?
No, don't do it.
No.
Just no. We say no to that.
There you have it.
Yes, the Scott Robbins trifecta. Thank you very much.
Wow, needed that crescendo at the end. Rock and roll and Cola Wars, and I can't take it anymore.
All right, we got to get to another news update. And Nimrod's in the news. Why would you steal a tricycle? Why would you do that? Straight ahead. The Markley, Van Camp, and Robbins Show. Jamie Markley, David Van Camp, Scott Robbins. Another news update, David Van Camp.
Well, of course, we all know the story of, Hunter Biden getting busted now for tax charges, misdemeanor charges on his taxes from a couple years ago. And he has taken a plea deal here, probably going to avoid jail time. And, of course, the administration that talks about common sense gun control has nothing to say about, Hunter Biden getting away with breaking federal gun laws.
Legacy media won't bring that up. We know that. And they're not going to talk about any of the Biden family corruption allegations, even though there's bank records, there's LLCs. There's 9 family members that got paid mysteriously out of nowhere. But no curiosity from the journalists. Democracy dies in darkness. From NBC or ABC or CBS, CNN, whatever. Okay. So just on we go.
Yes.
It's very frustrating, man. Very frustrating. Earlier we were talking about that Dr. Peter Hotez. He's a big COVID advocate. And he's been in the news recently because he was very critical of Robert Kennedy Jr., calling him, conspiracy theory, and he's so wrong about vaccines. And so it was Joe Rogan that said, hey, $100,000 to you. Otez, you've been on my show before. Come and debate. He's not going to debate. We know all of that. I didn't know this, but I happened to see it at Hot Air. Did you know that even though he's been one to say, hey, we don't need any sort of investigation, into the origin of COVID. It's just a waste of time, right? That he actually played a role because he helped fund the gain-of-function research at the Wuhan lab?
I had no idea about this. None.
Yes.
Holy smokes.
Yeah, I just saw it in the story. It's really interesting.
Jeez.
Who would have ever thought, okay, there's just this doctor on TV, and he comes in every once in a while to give his 2 cents on something, that it was that far deep in that whole COVID thing?
No.
That's not going to get reported either, by the way.
And why didn't we all know that to begin with before he started yapping about the vaccine and, how we all should behave and act? And
that's easy, actually. It's because journalists don't exist anymore.
And with that, we go to Nimrod.
When the going gets tough.
Damn it, this is too hard.
The dumb get dumber.
All right, Dean.
It's Nimrod's in the News on the Markley, Van Camp, and Robbins Show.
I love the poorly educated.
All right. Nimrod's in the News. A wild one. St. Pete, Clearwater, Florida. At the airport there, the Coast Guard has a base there for its planes and helicopters, their biggest and busiest air station in the country. So this woman, after she scales the fence there, hopped on a Coast Guard tricycle. It's adult size, they have them to move tools, equipment around the airport. They use golf carts too, bobcats, stuff like that, and they have these tricycles. She rode it across an active taxiway, abandoned it, then tried to get on an Allegiant flight. She also tried to get into a Coast Guard plane at one point. Security eventually saw her on the surveillance cameras and got her. And that's Nimrod's in the News.